Okay, let's unpack this. What if simply changing the way you talk to yourself could dramatically alter your life?
Hmm.
Your health, your physical reality, even your mental state. And maybe, just maybe, start working profound shifts in like 24 hours.
Yeah, it sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it? Like something out of a sci-fi flick or maybe one of those weekend seminars.
Right. Fluffy platitudes.
Yeah.
But honestly, stay with us here because the idea we're diving into today, it's way more grounded and frankly more powerful than that.
It really is a claim that grabs your attention, especially when we're often told that, significant change takes a long, long time. It's arduous.
Exactly.
But the really fascinating thing here is that this whole concept, the power of your internal language, it's not just some modern self-help fad.
Hmm.
It's actually a pretty profound principle.
Okay.
You see it echoing across millennia in ancient wisdom, and now it's being seriously explored by cutting-edge science.
And that convergence right there, that's why we're taking this deep dive today. We've pulled together insights from, well, really diverse sources.
Hmm.
We're talking ancient Buddhist teachings, thousands of years old, alongside contemporary scientific research, stuff digging into biology, brain function, the whole physical shebang.
So our mission for this deep dive, it's ambitious, definitely, but I think it's essential. We want to really get our heads around how your internal words, your self-talk, how they act, not just as like commentary running in the background,
Right.
but as powerful directive signals. We need to explore the mechanisms behind this power, looking at it from these different yet strangely aligned perspectives.
And crucially, show you how you can harness this force, how you can start shaping your own experience, not someday, but, well, potentially starting right now.
Right now, that immediacy, that's what's so compelling.
It really is. So let's start our exploration with that ancient wisdom you mentioned, the Buddhist perspective. How do these ancient teachings actually frame this idea of our inner voice?
Well, from a Buddhist lens, one of the really core concepts that helps us understand self-talk is this idea of thoughts, including that inner speech, as what they call mental formations.
Mental formations. Okay, so not just fleeting, random thoughts popping in and out.
Exactly. Not
Right.
just random noise. The teaching is that every thought you have, and especially every inner phrase you repeat, is actively forming something. It's building a kind of structure within your mental landscape. Think about negative self-talk in particular, those persistent ones, I'm not good enough, I always mess this up, I can't handle this. Every single time you rehearse those lines inside,
You're reinforcing it?
you are strengthening a specific mental pattern. It's like carving a groove deeper and deeper each time.
So repeating a thought literally builds a mental habit, just like, say, practicing scales builds a habit for a musician.
That's a great analogy. Exactly. The more you use that mental pathway, the stronger it gets, the more dominant it becomes. And over time, these habitual thoughts, they actually become automatic mental shortcuts.
Your mind just defaults to them.
It defaults to them, yeah,
Yeah.
without conscious effort. And the ancient sources are really clear. These automatic mental formations, they don't just stay in your head. They profoundly influence how you feel emotionally,
Okay.
generating stress, anxiety, sadness, frustration, whatever aligns with the thought pattern. They shape your behavior too, leading to avoidance, maybe procrastination, self-sabotage, and importantly, they even impact your physical reactions. Those physiological responses, heart rate, muscle tension, digestion issues, things often linked to chronic stress and negative thinking. Your inner habit becomes your outer experience.
So your inner world is actively, constantly constructing your outer reality through these habitual mental formations.
It is. And this understanding connects directly to a really central principle in Buddhist philosophy, right speech or samavaka.
Right speech, that's part of the Eightfold Path, isn't it?
Exactly. One of the 8 elements on the path to liberation to enlightenment.
Yeah.
Now, most people think of right speech in terms of external communication.
Like, don't lie, don't gossip, don't use harsh words when you talk to other people.
Absolutely. That's the common understanding. Our external words obviously affect others. They affect our relationships.
Makes sense.
But the sources we looked at really emphasize that this principle of right speech, it is just as crucial, maybe even more crucial, for our internal dialogue.
Ah, interesting. So how does that apply inwardly?
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
If you are constantly beating yourself up internally, engaging in harsh self-criticism, repeating limiting beliefs, dwelling on fear, even though nobody else hears it, that is absolutely not right speech.
Because the target of the harmful speech is yourself.
Precisely. And the Buddhist teaching is unambiguous. Harmful speech, whether it's directed outward or inward, generates suffering, period. Constant internal negativity cultivates these states of mind: anxiety, dissatisfaction, self-aversion, distress.
It feeds itself.
It does. Conversely, the deliberate practice of cultivating gentler language towards yourself, language that's honest, but also kind, encouraging, that's seen as an essential practice.
So internal right speech.
Internal right speech? Yes. It helps cultivate inner peace, clarity, self-compassion, resilience, all these states that are really central goals on the path. Your inner words are either creating suffering or cultivating well-being. There's not much middle ground.
So how you speak to yourself isn't just a reflection of how you feel. It's actively creating how you feel, moment by moment.
That's the core insight. And this leads us to another key concept: karma.
Okay, karma. A lot of people have misconceptions about that one.
They do.
Yeah.
In this context, it's not about cosmic punishment or reward from some outside force. It's understood much more as a natural law, a law of cause and effect, operating continuously, moment by moment. Every action, every intention creates a result.
And you're saying this law applies to our inner words, our thoughts, too.
That's exactly what the sources explain. Every thought, every little phrase you repeat internally, it's like planting a seed in the garden of your mind, and ultimately your life.
Okay, planting a seed. What kind of seed?
A seed that carries potential energy. It's not inert. It's programmed in a way to germinate and grow into your future emotions, your future reactions, and ultimately the experiences you encounter.
Wow.
So if you consistently plant seeds of kindness, self-acceptance, courage through your inner words, those qualities will naturally strengthen within you. They'll start to influence how you see the world, how you interact, the kinds of experiences you draw in.
And the opposite is true, too, I assume.
Absolutely. If you keep planting seeds of fear, doubt, self-criticism, those feelings strengthen. They color your perceptions. They create experiences that are rooted in those very states. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy driven by your inner language.
So the words I'm choosing internally right now are literally sowing the seeds for the reality I'm going to experience down the line.
That is the profound implication from this ancient viewpoint. And this is exactly where that radical yet deeply practical idea of the 24-hour shift comes in, where it gets its power.
Ah, okay. Connect those dots.
If you consciously decide, just for the next 24 hours, to speak to yourself with deliberate kindness, with awareness, with positive intention, actively shifting away from those old harmful patterns, then according to this understanding, you are immediately changing your future trajectory.
Right now.
Right now. You're planting new seeds. You're starting the process of growing a different version of yourself, one that could be lighter, clearer, more confident, more resilient.
That completely reframes karma. It's not some passive destiny you receive. It's dynamic, something you're actively creating, thought by thought, word by word.
Exactly. It gives you agency within this system of cause and effect. And the crucial tool the Buddhist teachings offer for actually doing this, for making that shift, it's mindfulness.
Mindfulness, okay.
The sources really hammer this home.
Yeah.
You cannot change what you're not aware of. Mindfulness, just paying attention to your present moment experience, including your thoughts, your inner speech, but without judgment, that's the absolute starting point for transforming your self-talk.
So step one isn't trying to force the negative thoughts away, but simply to notice them, to become aware.
Precisely. When you practice mindfulness and you catch yourself in that habitual negative loop, I'm such an idiot, or whatever it is, the goal isn't more self-criticism for having the thought. It's not about suppression either.
Just observe it.
Just observe it, recognize it for what it is. A mental event, a passing phenomenon. The sources use language that helps create a little distance. They say, it's not you. It's not the truth. It's just a pattern, a mental habit you've built up over time.
And if it's a habit, it can be changed.
Exactly. That moment of mindful awareness, it creates a little space, a tiny gap between the automatic thought popping up and your reaction to it. And in that space, that's where choice lies. You can choose not to identify with the thought. You can choose to let it drift by. And, critically, you can choose to consciously introduce a different inner word, a kinder phrase, an empowering idea. You can talk to yourself like you'd talk to a friend who's struggling.
With understanding, patience.
It's exactly. With encouragement.
So the transformation isn't about brute force. It's about cultivating awareness and then making conscious choices again and again.
So the ancient Buddhist perspective really gives us this profound framework. thoughts as formative habits, internal right speech being crucial for well-being, karma as this moment-to-moment cause and effect of our inner words, and mindfulness as the key to noticing and shifting those patterns. That's a really powerful foundation.
It really is. It provides this deep philosophical, ethical, and intensely practical basis for recognizing just how huge the impact of our internal narrative is on our mental state, our emotional life, and ultimately how our life actually unfolds.
Okay, so we have this ancient wisdom-based understanding that our inner words are these potent forces shaping reality. Now let's pivot. Let's look at the modern scientific perspective from the other source material, because it's fascinating how science, using totally different methods, different language, seems to be landing on conclusions that, well, resonate incredibly strongly with these very old ideas. Yet this is where that bridge between the ancient and the modern just becomes startlingly clear. The scientific sources we looked at, they start with an assertion that's both incredibly simple and kind of mind-blowing.
Okay, what is it?
That the words you use internally aren't just abstract symbols for thought or communication. They are, in fact, concrete signals, signals that are sent to every single cell in your body.
Every cell. How many? How many cells are we talking about? That sounds like a lot.
The source specifically mentions around 50 trillion cells.
50 trillion. Wow. That's that's almost impossible to visualize.
It's staggering. But imagine, every thought you think, every internal phrase you form, even the unconscious mutterings, is essentially giving a command, sending instructions to this vast, intricate network of cells, tissues, organs. Your entire physical system is constantly receiving messages based on your inner dialogue.
So my body isn't just like passively carrying my head around, it's actively listening and reacting to the language I'm using inside.
That's exactly it. And the sources point out that for most people, their internal dialogue is kind of like a broken record. It's the same old words on repeat.
Hmm.
Words often rooted in past memories, past failures, limitations, old identities. I'm not good at this. I always get sick around this time. This is too hard for me. I'm just not the kind of person who, you know the drill.
Yeah, we all have those tapes playing.
Right. And this relentless repetition of that past story is what keeps the body, the brain, the emotions kind of trapped in the same loops. It maintains the same physical states, triggers the same chemical reactions, and ultimately keeps you experiencing the same reality.
Because your biological system is just executing the program it's being fed. And the program is your self-talk.
Precisely. And this is where the truly radical and maybe, yeah, initially hard to believe claim from the scientific perspective comes in.
Okay.
What if consciously changing those internal words, deliberately shifting the narrative you're telling your body, just for a couple hours, could actually begin to change life itself?
What?
Not, magically transform everything overnight, but initiate profound physiological, neurological shifts right now. Starting in this moment, they frame it not just as think positive, but as consciously telling your entire biological system a new story about itself, about its potential.
Telling your body a new story. That is a really powerful way to frame self-talk. It's not just pep talk, it's like active reprogramming.
It is. And the sources insist this isn't just a metaphor. Using words in this focused, intentional way can literally start to change your physiological reactions. The science they point to draws heavily from psychoneuroimmunology, PNI.
PNI. That's the field connecting the mind, the nervous system, and the immune system, right?
Yeah.
Studying how they all talk to each other.
That's the one. Research in PNI has shown really tangible, measurable effects of our internal state, including thoughts and words on our physical health. For instance, negative self-talk. It's been shown to influence the secretion of inflammatory substances in the body.
Inflammatory substances, really?
Right. Yeah, and it can happen surprisingly fast, sometimes within minutes of engaging in that critical, stressful inner dialogue. And constant negative self-talk is strongly linked to chronically higher levels of stress hormones, like cortisol.
And we know high cortisol long-term is bad news for health, weakens the immune system, contributes to inflammation.
Exactly. Weight gain, impaired cognitive function, the list goes on. But conversely, the sources point to research showing that engaging in encouraging, supportive, empowering self-talk can lead to a much more beneficial hormonal state. They specifically mention an increase in DHEA.
DHEA, I've heard that called the youth hormone or something similar. What exactly does it do?
It's often called the rejuvenation hormone. It helps counteract the effects of stress hormones like cortisol. It supports tissue repair and maintenance. It helps protect brain function. So the science is indicating that your inner words are literally tweaking the chemistry flowing through your body, shifting it either towards stress and breakdown or towards balance and repair.
So my self-talk is acting like a conductor for my internal chemical orchestra. That's incredible.
It is. And this perspective views the body as this incredibly sophisticated biological computer,
Yeah.
operating at a fundamental, maybe even quantum level, constantly receiving and processing data. And your waking self-talk, those first thoughts in the morning, the commentary throughout the day that acts as the initial program for the day's operations.
Like booting up your personal operating system each morning.
Exactly like that. Phrases like, ugh, I'm so exhausted today, or this meeting is going to be a nightmare, or I never have enough time. They aren't just passive observations, according to this model. They are commands.
Commands.
Commands that activate specific neurological pathways, trigger corresponding hormonal responses, influence your immune system. Your body starts to align its physical state with the internal narrative you've just fed it.
So the body responds as if the words are already true, already happening.
That's a critical point the sources make. Your brain and body, deep down, they don't really distinguish between an external event happening to you and an internal reality you're vividly imagining or strongly stating with inner words. The reaction is based on the clarity, the feeling, the focus you bring to that internal message.
So feeling it matters.
Immensely. If you feel the exhaustion as you say, I'm so tired, your body gets a much stronger signal to produce fatigue chemistry than if you just muttered the words without emotion.
That's a game changer. My body reacts to my imagination and my inner words like they're real-time events.
Absolutely. So the logic follows. Change the words you habitually use inside, and you change the signals being sent system-wide. Change the signals, you change the instructions reaching those 50 trillion cells, and changing those cellular instructions. That holds the potential to change your physical state and the reality you experience.
And this connection goes even deeper. You mentioned genetics earlier.
Right. According to the sources, yes, they bring in epigenetics, which is the study of how environment, lifestyle, behaviors, including your thoughts and feelings, which are driven by your words, can actually alter gene expression.
Gene expression. So not changing the underlying DNA code itself.
Correct. Not changing the code, but changing how that code gets read and acted upon by your body, like highlighting certain sentences in the instruction manual and ignoring others.
Okay.
The sources present this idea that your words are, in effect, actions giving instructions to your genes. They suggest that words rooted in chronic fear, self-doubt, stress could signal genes to produce proteins linked with inflammation, disease, aging.
Wow.
Conversely, words infused with trust, compassion, courage, potential, and health, they might prompt your genes to create proteins that support healing, regeneration, robust health.
So my self-talk could literally be influencing which parts of my genetic potential get switched on or off? That is genuinely mind-bending.
It connects your inner language right down to the blueprint of your physical self. And then there's neuroplasticity.
The brain changing itself.
Exactly. The scientific sources really emphasize this. The brain isn't fixed. It's constantly reorganizing based on experience. And that includes your internal experience, your thoughts, your words. Every time you repeat a thought or an inner phrase, you strengthen the neural pathways linked to it.
So the more I think I'm not good enough, the easier it becomes to think that thought. The road gets wider.
Perfectly put. You're literally paving and widening the neural highways that lead to feelings and behaviors of inadequacy. It becomes the brain's default route.
Yeah.
But neuroplasticity means the brain can also create entirely new pathways and prune away old ones it doesn't use.
So the brain can reroute itself, build new roads.
It absolutely can.
Yeah.
When you consciously, consistently start using new words, words aligned with where you want to go, like I am capable, I am healing, I am strong, you start building different pathways.
Okay.
The sources describe these as starting like small trails in unfamiliar jungle, but with repetition, deliberate use, these new trails get wider, stronger, more efficient. Eventually, they become the main roads for your thinking and feeling.
And the old roads.
The old, unused pathways, the negative self-talk routes, they start to weaken. They get overgrown, essentially. The brain gradually prunes them away because they aren't being reinforced.
It's like building a new preferred highway and letting the old congested one fall into disuse.
That's a great way to picture it. And the sources mention something interesting here, that initial feeling of awkwardness, maybe strangeness, even resistance when you first try using new positive self-talk.
Yeah, feeling like it's fake or forced.
Exactly that. That feeling is actually physical proof that the rewiring process is beginning. It feels unfamiliar because you are literally forging new territory in your brain and body chemistry.
So the scientific view gives us this biological, neurological basis for the power of inner words. Cellular communication, body chemistry, epigenetics, neuroplasticity. tangible mechanisms that really echo that ancient idea of words being formative seeds.
It provides compelling evidence that your internal narrative isn't just background noise happening to you, it's something you're actively doing to yourself, right down to the fundamental biological levels.
Okay, we've explored the why. Both ancient wisdom and modern science are pointing to this incredible power locked in our inner words. Now, let's get practical. Let's talk about the how. The sources move from understanding this to actually doing something, suggesting that 24-hour experiment. How do we actually start?
Right. And the foundation for starting this journey, just like mindfulness was key from the Buddhist angle, it begins with observation. You can't consciously reselect your language until you know what you're currently saying.
So step one is still awareness.
Yeah.
Got it.
Become the observer of your own mind chatter.
Precisely. So the challenge to you, listening right now, is to become really aware. Tune into your inner dialogue over the next 24 hours. Just listen. Pay attention to those unconscious phrases that just run automatically. How do you talk about yourself, about your abilities, your future, challenges? Just notice, without judging yourself for it initially.
Just gather the data, see what's actually playing on the internal soundtrack. Exactly. Once you start getting a handle on that, then comes the conscious reselection. This is the deliberate, intentional part, choosing to introduce new words. And the sources give some really practical, concrete examples of how to reframe common negative patterns.
Okay, yeah, let's hear some of those. How do we translate this theory into actual phrases we can use?
Okay, so take that common feeling, stress is overwhelming, maybe even stress is killing me. Instead of letting that run, you could consciously choose a different phrase, one that maybe reinterprets the physical sensation, like, strong energy is flowing through me, I can use this power.
Oh, okay. It acknowledges the feeling but reframes it. Not destructive, but potentially useful energy.
Exactly, it shifts the perspective built into the words. Or, when you feel drained and the thought is, I'm just too tired, I can't do this, you could replace that with something like, every breath regenerates my body. I am connected to infinite energy.
That focuses on renewal, on resourcefulness.
Right, tapping into that sense. And for those moments of doubt, facing something difficult instead of the default, it's impossible, I'll fail, consciously choose. I'm in the process of learning and growing. The answers will reveal themselves.
That reframes failure as learning, impossibility as a process unfolding. These aren't just generic positive fluff. They sound like specific instructions targeting internal states.
They really are. And this leads to a hugely important point, the source's stress. It's way more than just mechanically saying the words. The real power comes when you feel them as if they're already true. Now.
Okay, the feeling component. This connects back to the body processing imagination as reality.
Exactly. The biological computer idea doesn't really distinguish. So when you use these new words, you have to try, really try, to infuse them with feeling. You have to feel that strong energy, feel the regeneration with your breath, feel the sense of learning happening. The sources say that intent, combined with high emotion, dramatically multiplies the signal's power.
So word plus felt sense, powerful signal to the brain and body. You got to embody the words.
You got it. Feel it as already happening, already true now, not just something you hope for later, because your biology is reacting now to the signals you send now.
Okay, so mindful observation, choosing new empowering words, feeling them as true now. When are the best times to really focus on this? Are there strategic moments during the day where this practice is extra effective?
Yes, the sources definitely suggest several strategic moments during that 24-hour period, times when your brain might be more receptive, or when those old ingrained patterns are most likely to kick in.
Like planting seeds in the most fertile soil at the right time of day.
That's a good way to put it. The very first strategic moment, the waking moment. Before you even swing your legs out of bed, your brain is often in those alpha or theta states, then relaxed, suggestible, closer to the subconscious. Prime time for programming.
Programming the biological computer right at boot up. Makes sense.
Yeah. So lie there, maybe take a few deep breaths, and speak your desired reality, internally or softly aloud. Things like, today's going to be the best day, or my body is filled with vibrant energy. Everything I need is flowing to me. I am calm, focused, and capable. Not predictions, remember, but commands.
Setting the tone and the instructions right from the get-go. Okay, what's next?
Looking in the mirror. This is a big one. So many people unconsciously criticize themselves when they see their reflection. The sources say, look yourself in the eye. Really connect with that person looking back. And deliberately speak words of acceptance, maybe even love. Don't zoom in on flaws. Speak to your essence. I love you just as you are. You are exactly where you need to be right now. I am becoming my true, powerful self every single day.
Turning a potential judgment moment into radical self-acceptance. I like that.
Exactly. Another key time. While eating. We often eat totally mindlessly, right? The sources suggest be conscious of the food. Speak gratitude and nourishment into the act. Phrases like, this food is nourishing every cell in my body. I am receiving vibrant energy from this meal. I am fueling incredible creation and health today.
Acknowledging food as fuel, consciously directing its effect.
Okay. Then, and this is really critical, moments of challenge or resistance. Those times when the old negative self-talk just screams at you, I don't want to, this is too hard, I'm not smart enough, not enough time.
Yeah, when the old program tries to run the show.
Right. The advice is recognize that moment. Pause. Take a breath. Instead of giving in to the resistance, actively choose a different internal response. An empowering phrase. Maybe if facing a tough task, I am focused and capable in this moment, or I have all the time and energy required. Solutions appear naturally as I move forward. You're guiding yourself through the challenge with your words, not being stopped by it.
Using your words like a rudder to navigate the choppy water.
Exactly. The sources also suggest a midday check-in. Just pause for a few moments around lunchtime. Observe your inner state, your dialogue, no judgment. Notice if old patterns crept back in. There's that worry loop again. Then consciously reaffirm your choice. I have a new choice right now. My words are actively rewiring my brain for the future I want.
Like a little course correction, reinforcing the new direction midday.
Yep. And a particularly powerful practice mentioned is consciously connecting with your body. Anytime, really. Maybe put a hand on your heart or your stomach, breathe deeply, and speak directly to your physical self. Thank you, body, for receiving these new commands. Your innate intelligence is amazing. Thank you for working so hard to rebuild towards health and vitality.
That sounds like building a partnership, bringing conscious awareness into your physical being.
It is. So many people operate like the head is separate, right? Intellect over here, body down there. This practice helps integrate. Recognizing your body as this magnificent, intelligent part of your awareness that's constantly listening.
Giving your body respect, acknowledgement, and clear direction.
You got it. Then, the end-of-day reflection. Try to avoid that common trap of reviewing everything that went wrong or didn't get done. Instead, focus on acknowledging progress, reinforcing the new identity. I took conscious steps towards my future self today. I practiced speaking powerfully and kindly. My body receives new, empowering instructions. Affirm the potential for tomorrow based on today's planting.
Ending the day by watering the positive seeds, not dwelling on the weeds.
Precisely. And finally, just before sleep, that transition time. The hypnagogic state. Your analytical mind quiets down, the subconscious is wide open, highly receptive. Potent time for installing positive programs. Speak words of healing, regeneration, preparation. My body heals perfectly as I sleep. Tomorrow unfolds beautifully. My subconscious arranges everything for my highest good. I surrender to deep, restorative peace.
Loading the most powerful instructions when the system is most receptive. These strategic moments really seem designed to hit key transition points and common challenges.
They provide these consistent touch points to reinforce the new self-talk, making it harder for the old patterns to just take over by default. And the sources also highlight another really powerful tool within this whole framework, the conscious use of questions.
Questions. How are questions a form of self-talk?
Well, think about the questions you might unconsciously ask yourself. Those negative ones like, why does this always happen to me? Or what is wrong with me? Or why am I so bad at this?
Oof, yeah. Those sound familiar.
The sources explain that these questions are incredibly powerful instructions. They direct your brain's focus. Ask a question like that, and your brain immediately goes to work trying to find the answer.
And the answer it finds will just confirm the negative premise of the question itself.
Exactly. Your brain diligently searches your memory banks for evidence to support the idea that things always go wrong, or something's wrong with you. It reinforces those neural nets of victimhood, lack, self-blame. But if you consciously choose empowering questions, you direct your brain's immense problem-solving capacity towards finding solutions, opportunities, evidence of growth.
So instead of, why am I so bad at this, maybe asking, how can I learn and improve in this area?
Precisely. Or instead of, why is this so hard, ask what possibilities are hidden in this situation. Or how can I approach this with more strength or ease? Or even, how would my future self, the one who's already mastered this, handle this right now? These questions actively prompt your brain to seek resources, solutions, proof of your capability. You're literally telling your brain where to focus its powerful searchlight.
That's a huge shift, using questions not to confirm limits, but to discover potential.
It really is. And one final piece the sources suggest is integrating short meditation sessions, maybe just 10 minutes morning, noon, night if possible. The benefit here is meditation helps quiet that noisy, analytical, often critical mind.
Okay.
It allows easier access to those deeper alpha and theta brainwave states, bypassing the conscious filter that might be saying, this is silly or this won't work.
Getting straight to the subconscious operating system, bypassing the skeptical gatekeeper.
Kind of, yeah. And during these meditation sessions, when you recite your chosen words or intentions, it takes on an extra layer. It's not just saying them, it's about fully feeling them as already true. Immersing yourself in the sensation of that desired reality while you're in that deeply receptive state.
Combining the intention, the words, and the felt emotion all in that receptive, meditative state.
The sources suggest this combo intention, conscious self-talk, and high emotion or felt sense, especially in those alpha-theta states, it exponentially increases the signal strength, sending it right to your subconscious, your whole biological system. This was where they suggest rapid reprogramming and lasting change can really be accelerated.
Wow. Okay. So the practice is multi-layered, mindful observation first, then deliberately choosing specific, empowering words and questions, infusing those words with genuine feeling them now, anchoring this practice at key moments throughout the day, and maybe boosting it with meditation to deepen the impact. That's a pretty detailed strategy packed into this 24-hour idea.
It's a comprehensive approach, yeah,
Yeah.
designed to create a rapid shift in your internal landscape and then, consequently, your external experience by consciously directing your own biology and neurology.
Okay, so embarking on this 24-hour experiment, committing to the observation, the conscious self-talk, it sounds incredibly powerful, but I can also imagine it feeling a bit, well, unnatural, maybe awkward at first.
That is such a crucial point, and the sources address it directly.
Yeah.
It is completely 100% normal to feel resistance when you start this. Totally normal.
Okay, good to know.
You might have those internal thoughts like, seriously, can words really change anything? Or this just feels fake. I feel like I'm lying to myself. Or just this general feeling of, yeah, awkwardness, unfamiliarity.
It's like trying to write with your non-dominant hand. It feels clumsy, forced, not right.
That's a perfect analogy. And the sources explain the biological reason for this. Your body, your brain, they're wired for homeostasis. They want to maintain equilibrium. They are comfortable with the familiar chemistry, the well-worn neural pathways, even if those patterns are linked to stress or limitation.
So the old limiting pattern feels normal or even honest just because it's what the system is used to running. It's the path of least resistance simply because it's the most traveled path.
Exactly. The sources put it quite bluntly. The body doesn't necessarily distinguish comfort from pain. It mainly recognizes familiarity.
Mm.
And that discomfort you might feel when you consciously try to install a new, unfamiliar program. The sources really want you to understand this. It is not a sign you're doing it wrong or that it isn't working.
Okay.
In fact, they frame that awkwardness, that discomfort, as a profoundly positive sign.
Positive. How so?
They say that feeling of resistance, the awkwardness, it's actual proof that the old entrenched patterns are being challenged. It's evidence they're starting to break down. It's the friction you feel when you're forging a new path. It's a sign of evolution happening right there in real time inside your brain and body.
So lean into the awkwardness. Don't run from it. It means the change is actually starting to take hold.
Precisely. See the discomfort not as a stop sign, but as the physical sensation of growth, of rewiring happening. And what about that feeling, I feel like I'm lying to myself, when you say something you don't fully believe yet?
Yeah, that's a big one for people.
The sources offer a really powerful reframe for this too, they say. You aren't lying about your past or even necessarily your immediate current state in this exact second. You are speaking as your future self.
Ah, speaking from the desired reality, not just about the current one.
Yes, you are actively using language to call that desired reality into being. It's not a dishonest statement about what is. It's a powerful declaration of what you are creating, what you are becoming. They describe it as part of the process of rebirth, of transformation. You're literally using the tool of language to step into a new version of yourself, shedding the old skin.
That totally flips it. The perceived lie becomes an act of powerful, conscious self-creation.
It fundamentally shifts how you understand what you're doing. And just to hammer home the tangible impact this can have, the sources share some really compelling anecdotes. stories of individuals who experience significant shifts by actually applying these principles. These stories really help remind us this isn't just theory, it has real-world effects.
Those stories are so important for showing the potential, making it relatable. Can you share a couple of examples from the sources?
Absolutely. There's one account of a woman dealing with chronic fatigue syndrome. Her internal dialogue was just dominated by, I'm so tired, I have zero energy, I'll never feel normal again. That had become her identity, her constant inner soundtrack.
And she probably felt she was just being honest about her reality.
Exactly. That was her initial resistance. She felt her negative self-talk was just an accurate description. But the sources point out that her honest negativity was actually functioning as a constant command, instructing her body to maintain that state of fatigue.
Wow.
So she agreed to try the 24-hour experiment, consciously replacing "I'm tired" with things like "I am energetic. My body is recovering its natural strength. Vibrant energy flows through me now."
And what happened?
She reported feeling a subtle but definitely noticeable shift in her energy levels within just a few hours. And with consistent practice, sticking with it over weeks and months, she experienced a significant lasting improvement in her symptoms. Her conscious shift in language became a catalyst for changing her physical reality.
That's an incredibly powerful illustration of that mind-body link driven by words.
Isn't it? Another anecdote involved a man. He had a genetic predisposition to high blood pressure, plus a stressful job making it worse. His self-talk reflected this: "My heart's weak, it runs in the family, I'm always stressed out."
Standard stuff reinforcing the condition.
Right. He started consciously using phrases like, "My circulatory system is strong and flexible. My blood flows easily and smoothly through my body."
And did these words actually affect his blood pressure?
According to the source, yes. He saw his readings stabilize remarkably quickly. Within weeks, he was apparently able to reduce his medication. And, working with his doctor, was able to eliminate it entirely within about 6 months. His words, combined with those biological mechanisms we talked about, seemed to help him override what looked like a genetic destiny.
Changing the biological instructions seemed to override the genetic tendency in his case.
Amazing.
That's what the story suggests. There's also one about a woman plagued by chronic migraines. She shifted her internal language to focus on calm and optimal function. My nervous system is calm and balanced. My brain functions optimally with ease.
And the result?
She experienced a dramatic reduction in both the frequency and the intensity of her migraines over a few weeks. Less pain, more ease, seemingly prompted by changing the internal commands to her nervous system.
Incredible. Any others? The sources also mention a man who'd battled depression for 2 decades. He started using phrases focused on internal chemistry and inherent well-being. "My brain produces balanced, feel-good chemicals naturally. I am fundamentally built for joy and peace." He reported experiencing a level of mood stability and sustained wellness he'd never thought possible before.
Using his words to influence his own neurochemistry.
Seems like it. And one more. A young athlete recovering from a pretty serious injury. Instead of dwelling on the damage or the long rehab time, his internal mantra became things like, "My body knows exactly how to heal itself perfectly, and I get stronger and more resilient every single day." His recovery significantly outpaced the doctor's expectations.
And these stories, they aren't presented as magic, right? But as outcomes. Outcomes of changing those biological, neurological signals through conscious self-talk.
Precisely. They serve as really compelling examples of the potential locked within this practice. And while that 24-hour challenge is a powerful experiment, a fantastic way to jumpstart the process, feel the immediate potential, the sources are very clear. The real, deep, lasting transformation comes through sustained, consistent practice.
So the 24 hours is the catalyst, the proof of concept, but not the whole journey.
Exactly. Those new neural pathways need regular traffic. The adjusted cellular instructions need consistent reinforcement. The redirected genetic signals need ongoing direction. They need to become the new default setting for your system.
Makes sense.
So the sources strongly encourage you, extend the practice. Go beyond the initial 24 hours. Try 48 hours. Then commit to a week. Then a month. Make it a conscious daily habit, weaving in those strategic moments, maintaining mindful observation. They suggest you will literally witness your life, your inner and outer experience, begin to reorganize itself around these new conscious internal signals.
Consistency turns the experiment into a fundamental shift in how you operate, how you are.
Yes. And just revisiting that idea of discomfort one last time, the sources remind us again and again. It's a natural part of dismantling the old stuff. As you speak new words, old emotions might bubble up, old beliefs might resist, old physical sensations might feel weird. This isn't a setback. It's the old system reacting to the new input.
Like old software glitching as the new system installs.
Good analogy. And in those moments of discomfort, instead of falling back into the old familiar negative talk, the practice is to meet that discomfort with your new chosen language. Speak to yourself through it. Phrases like, "This discomfort is the unmistakable sign of my evolution," or "This feeling is part of the change. I am becoming new right now."
Using your words not just to change your state, but to actively coach yourself through the inevitable bumps in the transformation process.
It transforms that discomfort from a signal, meaning stop, go back, into a signal, meaning keep going, this is working. It reinforces the understanding that the awkwardness is just a necessary toll on the road to progress and self-creation.
Yeah. This deep dive has really covered a lot of ground. We've gone from millennia-old wisdom about mind and action right through to cutting-edge science looking at cells, chemistry, brains.
And the thread connecting it all, the unifying message, it's incredibly empowering, isn't it? Your words, your inner voice, they aren't just passive reflections. They are potent, active forces, directly shaping your mind, your body, your brain, and ultimately the reality you find yourself living in.
And maybe the most compelling piece from these sources is that the power to actually initiate this change. It isn't somewhere out there. It's not some complicated therapy or expensive gadget. It's presented as being right here, inherent within you.
Exactly. Conscious language, your own inner voice used with intention, that's the switch. It's the most immediate, most accessible tool you possess to start sending new instructions to your entire being, starting right now.
So the invitation really is simple but profound. That 24-hour challenge to consciously choose your inner words, it begins for you, listening right now, this very moment. What words will you choose to plant? What kind of future will you start building with them?
And maybe just chew on this final thought. Based on those profound claims from the sources that your words give biological instructions to 50 trillion cells, that they can influence genetic expression, what unconscious biological instructions have you been giving yourself, day in and day out, maybe for years, through your default self-talk? And knowing what you know now, what new instructions could you consciously, intentionally choose right now in this moment to begin directing your magnificent system towards the future you truly desire?